Are you hungry or just lonely?" Caitlin asked the blond boy who had been staring at the shop window for almost an hour. "Both," Oliver whispered, a tear rolling down. "Then take this." She broke her only sandwich in half. "My name is Caitlin. I'm 7 years old." The boy hesitated, then bit into the sandwich as if he hadn't eaten in days. "I'm Oliver. I think my dad forgot about me." As he said that, a helicopter approached. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. "Are you okay?" Caitlin Johnson asked, approaching the boy on the park bench who was crying. Her small hand clutched a brown paper bag containing the sandwich, the only dinner she and her grandmother would have tonight. The boy looked up, his face wet with tears and smudged with dirt. His clothes were fancy, a dark blue sweater that felt soft like the stuffed animals in the department store windows, and pants without any patches or holes. But his eyes were red and scared. "I don't know where I am," he whispered. "The lady who was watching me left me here." Caitlin glanced around Franklin Park. The rain fell steadily, making soft, pattering sounds on the leaves. The sky was growing darker as evening approached. She knew she should hurry home. Grandma Rose always said Pinewood Heights wasn't safe after dark. But something about this boy's frightened face made her stay. "My name is Caitlin. I'm 7 years old. What's your name?" she asked, sitting down beside him on the wet bench. "Oliver," he said softly. "Oliver Whitman. I'm 8. "Are you hungry, Oliver?" Caitlin asked, looking at her paper bag. Inside was the Jackson's Deli sandwich that Grandma Rose bought every Friday with the change they saved all week. It was supposed to be their special dinner, half for her and half for Grandma. Oliver nodded, wiping his nose with his expensive sleeve. Without hesitation, Caitlin opened the paper bag and carefully unwrapped the sandwich. She broke it into 2 pieces. Not perfectly even, but she made sure to give him the bigger half. "Here," she said, holding it out to him. "My grandma says food always makes things better." Across town, Detective Sarah Martinez rubbed her tired eyes as she stared at the photographs spread across her desk. The missing boy case had kept her awake for 3 days straight. Oliver Whitman, son of Thomas Whitman, CEO of Whitman Technologies, had disappeared while under the care of his father's executive assistant. "Any new leads?" Captain Rogers asked, setting a cup of coffee on her desk. "Nothing solid," Detective Martinez sighed. "The assistant, Catherine Reynolds, claims he was taken from the mall while she was paying for his new shoes. Security footage shows them together at 2:15, but by 2:30 she's running through the mall alone, apparently searching for him. No clear footage of anyone taking him. The father landed 20 minutes ago," Rogers said. "He's demanding updates." Detective Martinez nodded. "I'll call him myself." Something about this case doesn't add up. The assistant's story has inconsistencies. In a sleek, glass-walled office overlooking the Seattle skyline, Thomas Whitman paced back and forth, his cell phone pressed to his ear. "Vanessa, please," he said, his voice strained. "Blaming me isn't helping find our son. You left him with your assistant while you flew to Tokyo," his ex-wife shouted through the phone. "Oliver needed his father, not your employee watching him." "I'm doing everything possible," Thomas replied. "I've hired private investigators, the police have their best detective on it, and I'm offering $5 million for information. I came back as soon as I heard." "Your money can't fix everything, Thomas," Vanessa said before hanging up. Thomas stared at his phone, the weight of guilt crushing him. He had trusted Catherine Reynolds for 7 years. She had been more than an assistant. She was his right hand, organizing every aspect of his life. How could she have lost Oliver? Meanwhile, in a small apartment in Pinewood Heights, Grandma Rose checked the clock again. 6:30. Caitlin should have been home 15 minutes ago. The electricity had been shut off again yesterday, another bill they couldn't pay, but the fading daylight still showed through the thin curtains. "That child," Rose murmured worriedly, looking out the window. The neighborhood wasn't what it had been when she was young. Now drug deals happened openly on corners and gunshots were not uncommon at night. Back at the park, Oliver had finished his half of the sandwich. For the first time, his shoulders relaxed slightly. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I was really hungry." "Where do you live?" Caitlin asked, taking small bites of her portion, trying to make it last. "In Westlake Heights," Oliver answered, "in the big glass building with the letter W on top." Caitlin's eyes widened. Everyone knew Whitman Tower. It was the tallest building in Seattle, where only the richest people lived or worked. "How did you get here?" she asked. Oliver's face darkened. "Ms. Catherine picked me up from school 3 days ago. She said Dad asked her to take care of me while he was in Tokyo. But instead of going home, we went to a strange place that smelled like coffee. She made me stay in a room with no windows." His voice trembled. "This morning, she brought me here and said to wait on this bench. She said she'd be right back, but she never came back." As Oliver spoke, a TV in the window of a nearby convenience store caught Caitlin's attention. Though she couldn't hear the sound, she saw Oliver's picture on the screen. The words "missing" and "reward" flashed beneath his school photo. Caitlin looked back at Oliver, realizing who he was. Her grandmother watched the news every evening, and for the past 3 days, they had seen reports about the missing son of one of the richest men in Washington state. In a luxury apartment across the city, Catherine Reynolds applied lipstick carefully, checking her reflection in the mirror. Her emerald ring caught the light as she adjusted her hair. "Did anyone see you drop him off?" asked the man sitting on her bed. "No, Marcus," she replied confidently. "I chose Pinewood Heights because no one would connect him to us there. By the time anyone finds him, we'll be halfway to Mexico with $15 million. Marcus Delaney smiled. "Thomas Whitman can afford it. He probably spends that much on his private jets in a year." "Exactly," Catherine said, putting on earrings. "Now I need to get to this charity event. Having a solid alibi is crucial for the next phase." The sky had grown darker and streetlights began to flicker on around Franklin Park. Caitlin knew Grandma Rose would be worried sick, but she couldn't leave Oliver alone. "It's getting dark," she said. "Do you want to come home with me? My grandma will know what to do." Oliver looked around nervously. "What if Miss Catherine comes back?" "Do you want to go back with her?" Caitlin asked. Oliver shook his head quickly. "Then come with me," Caitlin said, standing up and extending her small hand. "My grandma always says that problems look smaller after you've had something to eat and a good night's sleep." Oliver hesitated, then took her hand. As they walked through the darkening streets of Pinewood Heights, neither child realized that this simple act of kindness, sharing half a sandwich with a stranger, would change both their lives forever. The rain fell more heavily now, and Caitlin pulled Oliver under the awning of a boarded-up store. She carefully wrapped the remaining portion of her sandwich half and tucked it into her pocket. "Why are you saving that?" Oliver asked, watching her. Caitlin smiled. "For Grandma. She needs to eat too." Oliver looked down at his feet, suddenly ashamed that he had eaten his portion so quickly without thinking about sharing. "Your grandma sounds nice," he said softly. "She's the best person in the whole world," Caitlin replied as they continued walking. "She works really hard, but sometimes it's still not enough for all the bills. That's why we only get one sandwich every Friday to share." As they approached the apartment building, with its crumbling brick facade and broken front step, Oliver squeezed Caitlin's hand tighter. "Will she be mad that you brought me?" he asked. Caitlin shook her head. "Grandma never gets mad about helping people who need it. She says that's what makes us rich even when our pockets are empty." Caitlin led Oliver through the wet streets of Pinewood Heights, holding his hand tightly. The rain soaked their clothes, but Caitlin walked quickly, knowing exactly which streets were safe and which ones they should avoid. "We're almost there," Caitlin said, pointing to a worn brick building ahead. "We live on the 3rd floor. The elevator doesn't work, so we have to use the stairs." Oliver nodded, looking around nervously at the unfamiliar neighborhood. Everything here was different from his home in Westlake Heights. The buildings were old and close together. Some windows had boards instead of glass. People huddled in doorways to stay dry from the rain. "Is it much farther?" Oliver asked, his voice small and tired. "Just up there," Caitlin pointed. "The building with the blue door." "Grandma will make everything better. She always does." When they reached the apartment building, Caitlin led Oliver up the creaky staircase. On the third floor, she stopped at apartment 315 and knocked 3 times, then 2 times. A special knock so her grandmother would know it was her. The door opened quickly. Grandma Rose stood there, relief washing over her face. "Caitlin Johnson, I was so worried about you. It's almost 7 o'clock and dark outside," and her words stopped suddenly when she noticed the boy standing beside her granddaughter. Her eyes widened in recognition. "Oh my goodness," she whispered, looking at Oliver. "Come in, both of you. Come in right now." Rose quickly pulled them inside and locked the door behind them. The apartment was small but clean, with furniture that looked old but well cared for. A few candles provided the only light in the room. "Grandma, this is my friend Oliver," Caitlin said. "He was all alone in the park." The lady who was watching him left him there. Rose knelt down to Oliver's level, her hands shaking slightly. "Hello, Oliver. Are you Oliver Whitman?" Oliver nodded, moving closer to Caitlin. "How did you know my name?" "You've been on the TV news," Rose said gently. "Your father has been looking everywhere for you." Oliver's eyes filled with tears. "Can you call my dad?" "I want to go home." Rose looked pained. "I would call right now, but our phone service was cut off last week, and the nearest police station is 15 blocks away." She stood up, thinking hard. "But we'll figure something out, don't you worry." "The coffee lady might be looking for him," Caitlin said, repeating what Oliver had told her at the park. "Coffee lady?" Rose asked. "Ms. Catherine," Oliver explained. "She works for my dad. She took me to a place that smelled like coffee and cinnamon. Then she brought me to the park today and left me there." Rose's face grew serious. "Oliver, I want you to tell me everything about this Catherine person and where she kept you. But first, let's get you both into dry clothes." Across town at the Seattle Children's Charity Gala, Catherine Reynolds smiled confidently as she spoke with the city's elite. Her emerald ring sparkled under the ballroom lights as she checked her watch, 7:15. Her phone vibrated in her purse. She excused herself and stepped into a quiet hallway to read the message from Marcus. No sign of the boy in the park, searching nearby streets. Catherine frowned and typed back, "Keep looking. I need to stay here until at least 9 o'clock to establish my alibi." The father landed at 6. "Police will be all over soon." She put her phone away and practiced her concerned expression in a nearby mirror before returning to the gala. In the downtown police station, Detective Sarah Martinez studied the security footage from Whitman Technologies for the 3rd time. She noticed something she'd missed before. 3 days ago, Catherine Reynolds had accessed the restricted server room, which wasn't part of her regular duties. "Johnson," she called to her partner, "pull the building entry logs for Catherine Reynolds for the past month, and check if she has any property listings under her name, houses, apartments, anything." Detective Johnson nodded. "Already on it." Also, Thomas Whitman just increased the reward to $5 million. The tip line is going crazy. "Any credible leads?" Martinez asked. "Mostly garbage," Johnson replied. "But there's an interesting pattern. 3 separate calls mentioned an abandoned coffee warehouse near the waterfront." Martinez made a note. "Let's check it out tomorrow morning." At the Whitman Technologies headquarters, Thomas Whitman argued with his private security team in the crisis room they'd established. "I need to be out there searching," Thomas insisted, his voice hoarse from 3 days of little sleep. "Mr. Whitman, the police are handling the search," said Robert, the head of security. "Your job is to be available when they find Oliver. The kidnapper might try to contact you directly. It's been 3 days, Thomas said, running his hands through his hair. What if they've taken him out of Seattle? What if he's... He couldn't finish the sentence. We have checkpoints at all major exits from the city, Robert assured him, and the detective in charge, Martinez, has an excellent record for finding missing children. Back in the Johnson apartment, Caitlin had given Oliver one of her t-shirts to wear while his expensive clothes dried on a chair. The shirt was small on him, but it was clean and dry. Are you still hungry? Caitlin asked, sitting beside Oliver on their worn sofa. A little, he admitted. Rose looked in the nearly empty refrigerator. I can make you some toast with the last of our bread, and we have some apple slices. While Rose prepared the simple meal, Caitlin showed Oliver her most prized possession, a small box decorated with seashells. This is my treasure box, she explained, opening it carefully. It has all my important things inside. Oliver looked at the contents. A photo of a smiling woman who looked like Caitlin, a small blue rock, a feather, and a ticket stub from a movie. Who's that? Oliver asked, pointing to the photo. My mom, Caitlin said softly. She died when I was 4. Grandma takes care of me now. My parents don't live together anymore, Oliver shared. I stay with my dad, but he's always working. Ms. Catherine watches me most days. Tell us more about Ms. Catherine, Rose said, bringing over a plate with toast and apple slices. What did the place she took you look like? It was dark, Oliver said, taking a bite of toast. It had big machines with pipes. It smelled like coffee and cinnamon. There was a room with a bed where she made me stay. She took my phone and said if I tried to leave, I would get lost and never find my way home. Rose listened carefully. Did you hear anything outside? Cars, trains, boats. Oliver thought hard. I heard big boats making noise sometimes. And she talked to a man named Marcus. They said something about Mexico and money. In the apartment next door, Mr. Jenkins, a Vietnam veteran with severe agoraphobia, pressed his ear against the wall. Years of living alone had made him acutely aware of sounds from neighboring apartments. He recognized Rose's voice and the child's, but the boy's voice was new. He hadn't left his apartment in 3 years. Not since the panic attacks got so bad he collapsed at the grocery store. But he'd been following the Whitman kidnapping case on his TV, and what he was hearing through the wall made his heart race. The coffee warehouse, he whispered to himself. Has to be the old West Side Coffee Company by the docks. Mr. Jenkins looked at his prepaid phone on the table, then at his front door, which was secured with 3 locks. The thought of going outside made his chest tighten, but the thought of not helping a kidnapped child was worse. Outside the Johnson apartment building, a dark car slowly circled the block for the second time. Marcus Delaney watched carefully from behind the wheel, looking for any sign of Oliver. Come on, kid, he muttered. Where did you go? Back in the apartment, Rose tucked both children into Caitlin's small bed. She would sleep on the couch tonight. Try to get some sleep, she told them. Tomorrow morning I'll find a way to call the police. Is the coffee lady going to find me here? Oliver asked, his voice trembling. No, Rose assured him, though she wasn't certain. You're safe with us now. After the children fell asleep, Rose sat by the window, watching the street below. She noticed the same car passing by again and felt a chill run down her spine. She turned off the candles so no one could see into the apartment. What have we gotten ourselves into? She whispered to herself. Suddenly, there was a soft knock at the door, so quiet she almost didn't hear it. Rose froze, unsure whether to answer or pretend no one was home. The knock came again, slightly louder this time. Rose approached the door cautiously, her heart beating fast. She peeked through the small hole in the door and saw a thin, older man with gray hair standing in the hallway. His hands were shaking, and he kept looking back at his own apartment door across the hall. Who is it? Rose asked, keeping her voice low so she wouldn't wake the children. It's Jenkins. Frank Jenkins. From apartment 316, the man whispered. I need to talk to you about the boy. Rose hesitated. Mr. Jenkins was the neighbor who never left his apartment. In the 3 years she had lived in the building, she had only seen him twice. How do you know about the boy? She asked, still not opening the door. The walls are thin, Jenkins replied. I heard him talking about the coffee place and Catherine. I know who he is. I watch the news. Rose slowly unlocked the door but kept the chain on. Through the small opening, she saw Mr. Jenkins more clearly. His face was pale and covered in sweat despite the cool hallway. I have a phone, he said, holding up a small prepaid cell phone with trembling fingers. You can call the police. I think I know where they kept him, the old West Side Coffee warehouse. I worked security there before it closed down 7 years ago. Rose closed the door, removed the chain, and opened it again. Please come in, Mr. Jenkins. Jenkins stepped inside but stayed close to the door. His breathing was fast and shallow. Are you okay? Rose asked. Agoraphobia, he explained. Haven't left my apartment in 3 years. But I couldn't just… That poor kid. He took a deep breath. This is the farthest I've gone in a long time. Rose guided him to a chair. That was very brave of you, Mr. Jenkins. Frank, he said. Call me Frank. He handed her the phone. Call Detective Martinez. She's leading the case. Her number was on the news. Rose took the phone and dialed. After 3 rings, a tired voice answered. Detective Martinez. Hello, Detective. My name is Rose Johnson. I'm calling about Oliver Whitman. He's safe. He's with me and my granddaughter in Pinewood Heights. There was a pause on the other line. Ma'am, we've received over 100 false reports today. I need you to… Please listen, Rose interrupted. He was kept in a place that smells like coffee and cinnamon. The woman who took him is named Catherine. She wears an emerald ring. She left him alone in Franklin Park this afternoon, and my granddaughter Caitlin found him and brought him home. How do you know these details? Martinez asked, her voice now alert. Oliver told us. He's sleeping in my granddaughter's bed right now. We live in the Pinewood Apartments, apartment 315. Don't move, Martinez said. Don't tell anyone else he's there. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Is there anything else you can tell me? Yes, Rose said. My neighbor thinks Oliver was kept at the old West Side Coffee warehouse near the docks. And there's a car that keeps driving past our building. I think someone might be looking for him. At that moment, Caitlin appeared in the doorway of her bedroom, rubbing her eyes. Grandma, who are you talking to? Rose turned. It's okay, honey. This is our neighbor, Mr. Jenkins. He brought us a phone to call the police about Oliver. Can I talk to the police lady? Caitlin asked, walking over to Rose. Rose hesitated, then handed her the phone. Hello, Caitlin said. My name is Caitlin Johnson. I found Oliver in the park when I was coming home with our sandwich. He was crying. Detective Martinez's voice softened. Hello, Caitlin. That was very kind of you to help him. Is Oliver okay? He's sleeping now. He was really scared and hungry. He told me the coffee lady with the sparkly green ring took him away from his school. While Caitlin spoke to the detective, Rose noticed Frank Jenkins had moved to the window. He was carefully peeking through the curtains. The same car has gone around the block 4 times now, he said quietly to Rose. Dark blue sedan. 1 person inside. Across town at the charity gala, Catherine Reynolds felt her phone vibrate again. She stepped away from a conversation with the mayor's wife and checked the message from Marcus. Kid not in park or nearby streets. Expanding search to apartments. Will keep you posted. Catherine felt a cold wave of panic. She texted back, I need to maintain my appearance here. Keep searching. Call if you find anything. She returned to her conversation, but her mind was racing. Where could Oliver have gone? Had someone found him? Had he told them about her? She needed to leave the gala soon. At the police station, Detective Martinez was quickly organizing a team. Johnson, get 2 patrol cars to Pinewood Apartments right away, but no sirens, no lights. Park 1 block away and approach on foot. We don't want to spook anyone watching the building. She grabbed her jacket. "I'm heading there now, and send a team to check out the West Side Coffee Warehouse. If that's where they kept him, there might be evidence." Her partner nodded. "Should we notify Whitman?" "Not yet," Martinez said. "Let's confirm the boy is there and safe first. Too many false leads already." In the Whitman Technologies crisis room, Thomas was about to start a press conference. The dark circles under his eyes showed he hadn't slept in days. "Mr. Whitman," Robert said, handing him a sheet of paper, "here's your statement. We've increased the reward to $10 million. Thomas nodded, too exhausted to speak. His phone rang and he answered immediately. "Whitman. Thomas, it's Vanessa. Any news?" "I'm about to announce a higher reward," he said. $10 million. "Money won't solve everything, Thomas," his ex-wife said, her voice breaking. "I just want our son back." "So do I," Thomas whispered. Back in the Johnson apartment, Caitlin had finished talking to Detective Martinez and returned to check on Oliver. Frank Jenkins continued to watch the street while Rose made him a cup of tea. "You didn't have to do this," Rose said, handing him the cup. "I know how hard it is for you to leave your apartment." Frank's hand shook as he took the tea. "Some things are more important than fear," he said quietly. "I was in Vietnam. Used to be brave once. Then the panic attacks started, and I couldn't even go to the grocery store without feeling like I was dying." A small sound from the bedroom caught their attention. Oliver stood in the doorway looking confused. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice thick with sleep. Caitlin went to him immediately. "You're at my house, remember? I found you in the park." Oliver's face cleared. "Caitlin," he said, remembering. "Did you call my dad?" "The police are coming," Rose explained gently. "They'll help you get home to your father." "Do you want to play a card game while we wait?" Caitlin asked. "My mom taught me how to play Crazy Eights before she went to heaven." Oliver nodded. "I know that game." Caitlin went to get her cards while Rose helped Oliver sit at the small kitchen table. Frank Jenkins remained by the window, his military training from decades ago suddenly useful again. "The car is gone," he said, "but I don't think they've given up." At the charity gala, Catherine made her excuses and left earlier than planned. In the parking lot, she called Marcus. "Any sign of him?" she asked urgently. "Nothing," Marcus replied, "but I found something interesting." There was a report of a little girl talking to a boy matching Oliver's description in Franklin Park around 6 o'clock. A woman who was walking her dog saw them. "Did she see where they went?" "No, but there aren't many places he could be. I'm watching an apartment building now where I saw some activity, 3rd floor." Catherine started her car. "Text me the address. I'm coming there now. We need to find him before he talks to anyone. And Marcus, if someone has him, we'll need to implement our backup plan." "You mean framing them?" Marcus asked. "Exactly," Catherine said coldly. "I've already prepared documents suggesting Whitman Technologies fired someone from Pinewood Heights recently. We'll make it look like revenge." In the Johnson apartment, Caitlin and Oliver sat playing cards while Rose prepared a small meal from their limited food supplies. Frank Jenkins had finally relaxed enough to sit down, though he still glanced frequently at the window. "My dad and I used to play this game," Oliver said as he placed a card down, "before he got really busy with work." "Do you miss him?" Caitlin asked. Oliver nodded. "He's always at his office now." "Miss, Catherine was supposed to take care of me while he was in Tokyo." "Your dad will be really happy to see you," Caitlin assured him. "Grandma says parents always love their children, even when they're busy." Outside, Detective Martinez parked her unmarked car 1 block from the Pinewood apartments. 2 patrol officers in plain clothes met her there. "The target apartment is 315, she told them. "We approach quietly. No one knows we're coming except the people inside that apartment." As they walked toward the building, Martinez noticed a dark blue sedan turning onto the street. She signaled to her officers to watch it. Inside the apartment, Frank Jenkins suddenly tensed. "They're back," he said, looking out the window. "And there are others too. Not sure if they're with the first car." Rose looked worried. "The detective said 20 minutes. It's only been 15. A moment later, they heard footsteps in the hallway outside their door. Rose gathered the children close. Frank Jenkins stood up straight, his years of security training coming back to him despite his fear. Everyone froze as 3 soft knocks sounded on the apartment door. "Who is it?" Rose called, her voice barely above a whisper. "Detective Martinez, Seattle Police Department," came the response from the hallway. Frank Jenkins moved closer to the window, still watching the street. "The car is still there," he warned quietly. Rose approached the door cautiously. "How do I know you're really the police?" "Smart question," the woman on the other side answered. "I can slide my badge under the door if that helps." A moment later, a police badge appeared under the door. Rose picked it up and examined it carefully before returning it the same way. "Oliver, come here," Rose said gently. The boy was hiding behind Caitlin, his eyes wide with fear. "The police detective is here to help you. She's going to take you to your father." Rose unlocked the door, keeping the chain in place. Through the small opening, she saw a woman with dark hair pulled back, wearing a plain jacket and looking very tired. "I'm Detective Sarah Martinez," the woman said. "Are you Rose Johnson?" "Yes," Rose answered. "I have Oliver Whitman here. He's safe." Martinez nodded. "I have 2 officers with me. They're watching the building. We noticed a suspicious vehicle outside. Can you let me in so we can talk?" Rose closed the door, removed the chain, and opened it again. Martinez stepped inside quickly, her eyes scanning the small apartment and landing on Oliver. "Hello, Oliver," she said softly, kneeling down to his height. "I'm Detective Martinez. Your dad has been very worried about you." "Is my dad here?" Oliver asked, his voice small. "Not yet, but we're going to call him right now," Martinez said. She turned to Rose. "Thank you for keeping him safe. Can you tell me exactly how you found him?" While Rose explained how Caitlin had brought Oliver home from Franklin Park, Detective Martinez spoke quietly into her radio. "Suspect vehicle still on site. Request additional units for perimeter security. We have confirmed the child is safe and unharmed." Outside the apartment building, Marcus Delaney watched from his car as 2 people who didn't look like residents entered the building. His instincts told him they were police. He immediately called Catherine. "We have a problem. I think cops just went into the building. Plain clothes, but definitely police." Catherine, driving toward Pinewood Heights, gripped her steering wheel tightly. "Are you sure they went to the right apartment?" "3rd floor. Couldn't see which unit exactly. What should we do?" Catherine thought quickly. "Stay where you are. I'm 5 minutes away. If the police have found him, we need to move to Plan B immediately." Back in the apartment, Detective Martinez was gently questioning Oliver. "Oliver, can you tell me about the place where Ms. Catherine kept you?" Oliver sat at the small kitchen table with Caitlin next to him. It was dark. It had big machines. It smelled like coffee and cinnamon. "Did you see any windows or doors?" Martinez asked. "There was one small window, really high up. I could see big boats sometimes." Martinez nodded, making notes. "And what about the lady who took you? Did she talk to anyone else while you were there?" "A man named Marcus," Oliver said. "They talked about money in Mexico. And my dad." Frank Jenkins, who had remained by the window, suddenly stiffened. "A woman just joined the man in the car," he reported. "She's wearing a fancy dress like she came from a party." Martinez moved quickly to the window and looked out. "That's Catherine Reynolds," she said, recognizing the woman from the Whitman Technologies security footage. "She's Oliver's father's executive assistant." Martinez spoke into her radio again. "Suspects identified outside the building. Catherine Reynolds and unknown male accomplice in a dark blue sedan. Request immediate backup for arrest. Approach with caution. Suspects may be armed." Oliver had moved back to hide behind Caitlin when he heard Catherine's name. "The coffee lady is here?" he asked, his voice trembling. "She can't hurt you anymore," Caitlin assured him, holding his hand. "The police will keep you safe." Martinez knelt down in front of Oliver. "She's right. You're safe now. But I need you to tell me one more thing. Did Ms. Catherine ever mention where she was planning to go after she left you in the park? She told the man they had tickets for tomorrow. Somewhere hot with beaches, Oliver recalled. Martinez's phone rang. "Martinez," she answered. After listening for a moment, her expression changed. "Sir, we can't secure the scene yet. We've identified the suspects outside the building, but—" She paused, listening again. "I understand, but it's not safe to bring him here right now." She hung up and turned to Rose. "Thomas Whitman is on his way here by helicopter. He's landing in an empty lot 2 blocks from here in about 10 minutes. Is that a good idea?" Rose asked, concerned. "No, it's not," Martinez admitted, "but he's insisted. The problem is, his arrival will draw attention. If Catherine and her accomplice see the helicopter, they might try to run, or worse." In the car outside, Catherine watched the building intently. "Something's happening," she said to Marcus. "There's more police activity around the perimeter." Marcus gripped the steering wheel. "We should leave now." "No," Catherine insisted. "If we run, we're admitting guilt. We need to control this situation." She reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. "I've prepared everything we need to frame whoever has Oliver. We'll say we traced him here and came to help." "And if they don't believe us?" Marcus asked. Catherine opened her glove compartment and showed him a small gun. "This is our insurance policy." Inside the apartment, Martinez was coordinating with her team outside when she received another call. "The helicopter is landing now," she informed the others after hanging up. "I need to go meet Mr. Whitman and bring him here safely. Officer Johnson will stay with you. Do not open the door for anyone else." Frank Jenkins moved away from the window. "I'll go with you," he offered. "I know this building better than anyone. There's a back way through the service entrance that's more private." Martinez looked surprised. "Mr. Jenkins, I understand you have agoraphobia. You don't have to leave the building." "I've already left my apartment today," Frank said with determination. "Might as well keep going." After Martinez and Frank left, Rose sat with the children at the table. Officer Johnson remained by the door, his hand near his holstered weapon. "What happens now?" Caitlin asked. "Oliver's dad will come here," Rose explained, "and then Oliver can go home." "Will I see Caitlin again?" Oliver asked quietly. Before Rose could answer, they heard a commotion outside. The distinctive sound of helicopter blades was now unmistakable, even from several blocks away. In the empty lot, Thomas Whitman jumped out of the helicopter before it fully landed, ignoring the pilot's protests. Detective Martinez was waiting for him, along with an older man Thomas didn't recognize. "Where's my son?" Thomas demanded over the noise of the helicopter. "He's safe, Mr. Whitman," Martinez assured him. "He's in an apartment 2 blocks from here. This is Frank Jenkins. He's going to show us a discreet way to get there." Thomas nodded impatiently. "Let's go. Now." As they made their way through back alleys guided by Frank, Catherine and Marcus had also heard the helicopter. They watched as local news vans began arriving at the scene. "It's time," Catherine said, checking her appearance in the mirror. "Here's the story. We received a tip that Oliver was here. We came to investigate because we care about him. We're shocked and horrified to discover these people were involved in his kidnapping." "What if Oliver tells them the truth?" Marcus asked. "He's an 8-year-old traumatized child," Catherine replied coldly. "His testimony won't hold up against ours. Let's go." Back in the apartment, Officer Johnson's radio crackled. "Suspects are exiting their vehicle and approaching the building. All units be advised." "What does that mean?" Rose asked, her voice tense. "It means we have a situation," Johnson replied, moving to position himself between the door and the others. "Stay away from the windows and keep the children in the back room." Rose quickly ushered Caitlin and Oliver toward the bedroom, but before they could reach it, there was a loud knock at the door. "Seattle Police, open up!" a voice called out. But it wasn't Martinez's voice. Officer Johnson held up his hand, signaling Rose to stay back. He spoke quietly into his radio. Possible police impersonation at apartment 315, requesting immediate backup. The knocking grew louder. "We know the boy is in there! Open up now!" In the back stairwell, Martinez, Thomas, and Frank were making their way up to the third floor when they heard the commotion above them. "That's not my team," Martinez said, drawing her weapon. "Run up these stairs and turn right. The apartment is the third door. Stay behind me." They rushed up the remaining stairs. Thomas was breathing hard, not from exertion, but from the thought of being so close to his son. Inside the apartment, Officer Johnson had his weapon drawn and was positioned to the side of the door. "Rose, take the children into the bathroom and lock the door," he instructed calmly. Rose grabbed both children's hands and pulled them toward the bathroom. Oliver was shaking with fear, while Caitlin looked determined to stay brave. "It's going to be okay," Caitlin whispered to Oliver as Rose closed the bathroom door and locked it. In the hallway outside, Catherine and Marcus stood to one side of the apartment door. Marcus now held the gun while Catherine prepared to act her part. They heard footsteps coming from the stairwell. Catherine turned to see Detective Martinez approaching with her weapon drawn, followed by Thomas Whitman and an older man she didn't recognize. For a moment, everyone froze in the hallway. Then Thomas saw Catherine and his face transformed with anger. "Where is my son?" he demanded. Catherine's face immediately changed from shock to a practiced look of concern. She stepped toward Thomas, her hands outstretched. "Thomas!" "Thank goodness you're here," she said, her voice trembling perfectly. "I've been searching everywhere for Oliver. I received a tip he might be in this building." Detective Martinez kept her gun pointed at Marcus. "Drop the weapon. Now." Marcus hesitated, his eyes darting between Martinez and Catherine. "Marcus is my private security," Catherine explained quickly. "I was so worried about Oliver I hired him to help me search. We have reason to believe the people in this apartment are involved in Oliver's kidnapping." Thomas looked confused. "What are you talking about?" "The detective told me Oliver is safe inside this apartment." Martinez spoke firmly, never taking her eyes off Marcus. "Mr. Delaney, drop the weapon or I will shoot you." Inside the apartment, Officer Johnson heard the commotion in the hallway. He called through the door. "Detective Martinez, is that you?" "Yes, Johnson. We have a situation out here. Keep the door secured." Frank Jenkins stood back against the wall, his breathing fast but controlled. He watched Catherine with narrowed eyes. "I know this woman," he said quietly to Thomas. "She was at the coffee warehouse last week. I saw her from my apartment window when I was watching the docks." Catherine's eyes flashed with anger before she controlled her expression. "I don't know what this man is talking about." "Thomas, we need to get into that apartment. Oliver could be in danger." Marcus slowly lowered his gun. Martinez moved forward quickly and took it from him, then handcuffed him to a pipe in the hallway. "Catherine Reynolds, keep your hands where I can see them," Martinez ordered. Catherine ignored her, focusing on Thomas. "Thomas, please. I've been looking for Oliver since he disappeared from the mall. These people must have taken him." Martinez knocked on the apartment door. "Johnson, it's Martinez. Open up." The door opened slightly, and Officer Johnson peeked out. Seeing it was safe, he opened the door wider. Martinez entered first, followed by Thomas and Frank. Catherine tried to follow, but Martinez blocked her. "You stay in the hallway," Martinez instructed. "Officer Peters is coming up the stairs now, and will keep an eye on you and Mr. Delaney." Inside the apartment, Thomas looked around desperately. "Where's my son? Where's Oliver?" Rose emerged from the bathroom with both children behind her. Oliver peeked around Rose's leg, and when he saw his father, his eyes grew wide. "Dad!" he cried, running across the small living room and throwing himself into Thomas's arms. Thomas knelt down and hugged Oliver tightly, his whole body shaking. "Oliver, oh Oliver, are you okay? Are you hurt?" "I'm okay, Dad," Oliver said, his voice muffled against his father's shoulder. Thomas pulled back to look at his son's face, touching his cheeks, his hair, his shoulders, as if making sure he was real. "I was so worried about you. I'm so sorry I wasn't there." While father and son reunited, Detective Martinez spoke quietly with Rose and Officer Johnson. Frank Jenkins stood near the window, keeping watch on the growing crowd outside. "There are news vans arriving," he reported. "Someone must have tipped them off." Caitlin had moved to stand beside her grandmother, watching Oliver and his father. She smiled shyly when Thomas finally looked up and noticed her. "And who is this?" Thomas asked, his voice gentle. "I'm Caitlin," she answered. "Oliver and I are friends now." Oliver turned to Caitlin and reached for her hand. "Dad, this is Caitlin. She found me in the park and gave me half of her sandwich, and this is her grandma Rose. They kept me safe." Thomas looked at Rose and Caitlin with new understanding. You helped my son?" Rose nodded. "Caitlin found him alone in Franklin Park. We had no idea who he was at first, but when we realized, we called Detective Martinez right away." "Thank you," Thomas said, his voice breaking. "Thank you for keeping him safe." The moment was interrupted when Catherine appeared in the doorway, having pushed past the newly arrived Officer Peters. "Mr. Whitman," Catherine said urgently, "be careful." "These people took Oliver from our agreed drop-off location. They were planning to ask for more money." Martinez moved to block Catherine. "Ms. Reynolds, I told you to remain in the hallway." Thomas stood up, keeping Oliver close to him. "What are you talking about, Catherine?" "What drop-off location?" Before Catherine could answer, Oliver pointed at her, his face suddenly pale with fear. "That's the bad lady," he cried. "That's her! The coffee lady with the sparkly ring." Everyone in the room froze. Catherine's confident expression faltered for just a second before she recovered. "Oliver, sweetie, you're confused," she said soothingly. "I've been looking for you since you went missing from the mall. These people must have told you things that aren't true." Oliver shook his head vigorously. "No, you took me from school. You said Dad asked you to take care of me, but you took me to the coffee place. You locked me in a room." Detective Martinez stepped forward. "Ms. Reynolds, the coffee place Oliver is describing matches the old West Side coffee warehouse near the waterfront. We have officers there now, and they've found evidence someone was being kept there recently." Thomas stared at Catherine, the woman he had trusted for 7 years. "Catherine? What is my son talking about?" Catherine's face hardened. In a swift movement, she reached into her purse and pulled out a second gun that Martinez had missed when checking her. "Everyone stay still," she ordered, pointing the gun at Martinez first, then moving it to aim at Oliver and Thomas. "This has all gone very wrong." Martinez slowly raised her hands. "Catherine, put the gun down. You don't want to make things worse for yourself." In the hallway, Marcus had managed to free one hand from the handcuffs. He slipped into the apartment behind Catherine, grabbing Officer Peters' gun from his holster. "Everyone against the wall," Marcus ordered, waving the gun. "Now!" The room erupted in controlled chaos. Rose pulled Caitlin behind her. Thomas shielded Oliver with his body. Martinez and Johnson had their hands up, their eyes calculating, looking for an opening. "Catherine, why?" Thomas asked, his voice hollow with betrayal. "Why would you do this to my son?" "To me?" Catherine's laugh was bitter. 7 years, Thomas. 7 years I ran your life, managed your empire, made you successful. And what did I get? A Christmas bonus and a pat on the head while you made billions. "So this was about money?" Thomas asked. "It was about what I deserve," Catherine snapped. $15 million is nothing to you. Nothing. And I would have gotten away with it if this little brat hadn't wandered off." She glared at Caitlin. Marcus moved around the room, collecting the officers' weapons. "What now, Kath?" "We can't exactly walk out of here with police everywhere. We need hostages," Catherine decided, her voice cold. "The boy, for sure, and Whitman. The rest can stay." "No!" Oliver cried, clinging to his father's leg. I don't want to go with the coffee lady again." Frank Jenkins, who had remained quiet near the window, suddenly spoke up. "There are at least 20 police officers outside now. Helicopters, too. You're not getting away with this." Catherine swung her gun toward him. "Shut up, old man. You don't know anything." The tension in the room was unbearable. Rose held Caitlin tightly. Martinez and Johnson remained alert, looking for any opportunity to act. Thomas kept Oliver behind him, his face pale but determined. In this moment of high tension, Caitlin slipped from her grandmother's grasp and stepped forward. Everyone in the room froze as the small 7-year-old girl walked slowly toward Marcus, who was closest to her. "Caitlin, no!" Rose gasped, reaching for her, but Caitlin kept walking. She reached into her pocket and pulled out something wrapped in a napkin. "Mister," she said to Marcus, her voice clear and unafraid, "are you hungry? I saved the other half of my sandwich." Marcus stared at her in confusion. The gun in his hand wavered slightly. "My grandma says when people do bad things, it's usually because they're scared or hungry," Caitlin continued, unwrapping the napkin to reveal the slightly squashed half sandwich. "Are you scared, mister?" The simple question hung in the air. No one moved. No one spoke. Marcus looked at the small child offering him food, the only food she had, and something in his face changed. His hand holding the gun began to tremble. "Shoot her, Marcus!" Catherine hissed. "What are you doing?" But Marcus was staring at Caitlin, at her innocent face and the offered sandwich. In that moment, everyone in the room could see him remembering something from long ago, something that made his eyes fill with unexpected tears. Detective Martinez saw her chance. In one swift movement, she lunged at Marcus, knocking the gun from his hand. At the same time, Officer Johnson tackled Catherine from behind, sending her weapon skittering across the floor. Thomas pulled Oliver to the floor, covering him with his body. Rose grabbed Caitlin and dragged her to safety. Frank Jenkins, moving with unexpected speed for his age, kicked Catherine's gun under the couch. In seconds, it was over. Both Catherine and Marcus were face down on the floor, being handcuffed by the officers. "Catherine Reynolds, you are under arrest for the kidnapping of Oliver Whitman, attempted extortion and assault with a deadly weapon," Martinez recited, securing the handcuffs around Catherine's wrists. As the officers led the kidnappers away, Thomas hugged Oliver tightly, then stood and walked over to where Rose held Caitlin. "Your granddaughter just saved everyone in this room," he said, his voice filled with awe. "How did she know what to do?" Rose shook her head, holding Caitlin close. "She just sees people, really sees them. It's always been that way." Caitlin looked up at Thomas. "I just thought he looked hungry, like Oliver did in the park." Thomas knelt down to Caitlin's level. "Thank you for sharing your sandwich with my son. And thank you for being brave just now." Oliver came over and took Caitlin's hand. "Can Caitlin come visit me at my house sometime, Dad? I want to show her my toys." Thomas looked at the Johnson apartment, the worn furniture, the patched curtains, the single light bulb overhead, and then at Rose's tired face and Caitlin's bright eyes. In that moment, a plan began forming in his mind. "Actually," he said slowly, "I think we might be seeing a lot more of Caitlin and her grandmother, if that's okay with them." Rose looked at Thomas with surprise. "What do you mean?" Before Thomas could answer, Detective Martinez returned to the apartment. "The suspects are secure in patrol cars. We'll need statements from everyone, but that can wait until tomorrow. Right now, I want to get Oliver checked out at the hospital." "I'm not hurt," Oliver protested. "I want to stay with Caitlin." Thomas knelt beside his son. "We need doctors to make sure you're okay, buddy. But I promise Caitlin can visit soon." "Can she come to the hospital with us?" Oliver asked. Thomas looked at Rose. "Would that be okay? I can arrange for both of you to be checked out too." Rose hesitated. "I don't know. We don't have health insurance anymore, not since the hospital layoffs." Thomas's face changed. "Which hospital did you work at?" "West Side Memorial," Rose replied. "For 22 years in the pediatric ward. Then 2 years ago, new owners took over and cut half the staff. Thomas grew pale. Whitman Healthcare Group acquired Westside Memorial 2 years ago. Yes, Rose said simply. I know. The room fell silent as Thomas realized his company's decisions had directly affected the Johnson family. He took a deep breath. Please let me take all of you to Seattle General. My personal doctor can check everyone and I'll cover all costs. Rose looked at Caitlin, who was still holding Oliver's hand. Okay. For the children. Outside, news crews filmed as Catherine and Marcus were placed in separate police cars. The street was filled with flashing lights from police vehicles and news vans. We need to go now, Martinez urged. I've arranged for a police escort to take you out through the back entrance. Frank Jenkins cleared his throat. I should get back to my apartment. Thomas turned to him. Mr. Jenkins, you helped save my son. I won't forget that. Frank shook his head. Anyone would have done the same. No, Thomas said firmly. Most people wouldn't have left their apartment after 3 years. You showed real courage today. Frank looked embarrassed but pleased. As he turned to leave, Martinez stopped him. Mr. Jenkins, we'll need your statement too, and I'd like to talk more about what you saw at the coffee warehouse. I'll be home, Frank said, not going anywhere. 30 minutes later, 2 police cars escorted a black SUV with tinted windows through the streets of Seattle. Inside, Thomas sat with Oliver pressed against his side. Across from them, Rose and Caitlin watched the city lights pass by. Your apartment is very different from our house, Oliver said to Caitlin. Oliver? Thomas started, concerned about his son's comment. It's okay, Caitlin said with a smile. Your house must be really big if you live in that tall building with the W on it. It's on the top floor, Oliver explained. I have my own room and a playroom and a study room. But it gets lonely sometimes. Thomas watched his son interact with Caitlin. Oliver seemed more animated and relaxed than he had been in months, despite his ordeal. Grandma, Caitlin said suddenly, we forgot about Mr. Jenkins's phone. Rose gasped. You're right. We'll need to return it to him tomorrow. I'll make sure he gets a new phone, Thomas assured her. And anything else he needs. At Seattle General Hospital, Thomas's arrival caused immediate activity. The hospital administrator met them at the private entrance, and medical staff quickly led them to the VIP wing. We've prepared rooms for everyone, the administrator said. Dr. Patel is waiting to examine Oliver, and we have pediatricians and other specialists standing by. Thomas nodded. Thank you. Please make sure Mrs. Johnson and Caitlin receive the same care. As medical staff led Oliver toward an exam room, he stopped and reached for Caitlin. Don't leave. I'll be right here, Caitlin promised. She can come with us, the doctor offered, seeing Oliver's distress. Thomas watched as the children walked hand in hand into the exam room. He turned to Rose. Mrs. Johnson. Call me Rose, please, she said. Rose, I don't know how to thank you for what you and Caitlin did for Oliver. Rose shook her head. We did what anyone would do. No, Thomas said firmly. Most people would have looked the other way. But your granddaughter shared her dinner, your dinner, with a stranger, and you took in a lost child even though you barely had enough for yourselves. Before Rose could respond, Detective Martinez approached them. I just got word from the team at the warehouse, she said. They found evidence confirming Oliver was held there. They also found financial documents. It looks like Catherine was embezzling from your company, Mr. Whitman. The kidnapping was both for ransom money and to cover her tracks. How long? Thomas asked. At least 3 years, Martinez replied. She had access to company accounts, pension funds, investment portfolios. We're still calculating the total, but it's in the millions. Thomas ran his hands through his hair. I trusted her completely. She managed everything while I focused on growth and acquisitions. Including the acquisition of Westside Memorial? Rose asked quietly. Thomas looked at her, really seeing her for the first time. Yes, Catherine handled the details. She recommended the staffing cuts. She said it was necessary to make the hospital profitable. Rose nodded slowly. 22 years I worked there. I helped thousands of children. Then one day a paper was on my desk saying my position had been eliminated. Thomas sat heavily in a nearby chair. I'm sorry, Rose. I approved the acquisition, but I never looked at the human cost. I was focused on the bottom line. It wasn't just me, Rose continued. Dozens of experienced nurses and staff lost their jobs. The hospital used to serve everyone in the community, including people from Pinewood Heights. Now, many can't afford care there. As Rose spoke, a doctor approached them. Mr. Whitman? We've completed Oliver's initial examination. He's dehydrated and slightly undernourished, but otherwise in good physical condition. We'd like to keep him overnight for observation. And Caitlin? Rose asked. The doctor hesitated. We've examined Caitlin as well. She shows signs of long-term mild malnutrition. Nothing serious, but concerning. Has she been getting regular meals? Rose looked down at her hands. We do our best. Some weeks are harder than others. Thomas watched as shame crossed Rose's face, the shame of a grandmother unable to provide enough food for her grandchild. Doctor, Thomas said, please make sure both children receive proper nutrition while they're here. And I'd like Rose to be checked thoroughly as well. After the doctor left, Martinez approached again. Mr. Whitman, we found something else at the warehouse. Evidence that Catherine was planning to frame Rose and Caitlin as accomplices in the kidnapping. She had created false documents showing Rose was fired from Whitman Memorial and wanted revenge. Thomas looked shocked. That's horrible. It gets worse, Martinez continued. Catherine had been monitoring employee complaints about the hospital acquisition. She specifically targeted Rose because she had filed a formal complaint about patient care after the staffing cuts. Rose looked surprised. I didn't think anyone even read that complaint. Catherine did, Martinez said, and she kept it as potential leverage. She was very methodical. Thomas turned to Rose. What was your complaint about? After the cuts, there weren't enough nurses to properly care for the children, Rose explained. Some patients weren't getting their medications on time. Others weren't being monitored correctly. I was worried someone would get hurt, so I wrote to the administration. Thomas closed his eyes briefly, and instead of fixing the problem, Catherine added you to her list of potential scapegoats. A nurse appeared in the hallway. Mr. Whitman, Oliver is asking for you and Caitlin. He's getting upset. Thomas and Rose followed the nurse to Oliver's room. Inside, Oliver sat in a hospital bed with Caitlin in a chair beside him. When they entered, both children looked up. Dad, can Caitlin stay here tonight? Oliver asked. She keeps the bad dreams away. If it's okay with Rose, Thomas said. Rose nodded. Of course. Caitlin smiled. I told Oliver about the time I stayed in the hospital when I had my tonsils out. I said the pudding was the best part. We haven't had the pudding yet, Oliver said seriously. The nurse promised to bring some soon. Thomas watched as the children talked, struck by how quickly they had bonded. His son, who usually struggled to connect with other children, had found a friend in the most unexpected place. Later, when both children were asleep, Oliver in the hospital bed and Caitlin curled up on a cot nearby, Thomas and Rose sat in the waiting area drinking coffee. What will happen to Catherine? Rose asked. She'll face multiple serious charges, Thomas replied. Kidnapping, extortion, embezzlement, fraud, assault with a deadly weapon. She won't see freedom for a very long time. Rose nodded. And what about you and Oliver? What happens now? Thomas stared into his coffee cup. I've been thinking about that. This whole experience has shown me how disconnected I've been from Oliver, from the consequences of my business decisions, from the real world. It's never too late to change, Rose said gently. Thomas looked up. No, it's not. And I'm going to start with Pinewood Heights. What do you mean? Rose asked. I mean that tomorrow I'm going to start fixing what I helped break, Thomas said firmly. Beginning with your apartment building and then the rest of the neighborhood. Rose looked skeptical. It would take more than money to fix Pinewood Heights. I know, Thomas agreed. It would take people who understand the community. People like you, Rose. Outside the hospital window, the first light of dawn was beginning to show. A new day was starting, one that would bring changes none of them could have imagined just 24 hours earlier. The next morning, Oliver woke up in his hospital room and immediately looked for Caitlin. She was already awake, sitting cross-legged on her cot, making paper airplanes out of the breakfast menu. "You're awake!" Caitlin smiled. "Do you want to learn how to make these?" Oliver nodded eagerly. "I never made paper airplanes before." Caitlin looked surprised. "Never? Not even at school?" "I have a private tutor," Oliver explained. "Dad says it's better than regular school." As the children folded paper together, Thomas entered with Rose and Dr. Patel. They watched the children for a moment, noticing how relaxed Oliver seemed. "Good news," Dr. Patel said. "Oliver can go home today. He's doing very well." "Can Caitlin come too?" Oliver asked immediately. Thomas hesitated. "Well, Caitlin and Rose have their own home." "Actually," Dr. Patel interjected, "I'd like to discuss something with you both." He motioned for Thomas and Rose to step outside. In the hallway, the doctor spoke quietly. "Mrs. Johnson, your blood pressure is dangerously high. You need medication and regular monitoring." "I can't afford that right now," Rose said simply. "I'll cover all costs," Thomas said firmly. Rose straightened her shoulders. "Mr. Whitman, we don't need charity." "It's not charity," Thomas insisted. "It's my responsibility. My company's decisions affected your employment, your health care, your ability to care for Caitlin. Please let me help." Before Rose could respond, a hospital administrator approached them. "Mr. Whitman, there are several news crews in the lobby asking for statements about your son's rescue." Thomas frowned. "I'm not speaking to the press right now. They're saying it's a miraculous story, how you personally tracked down the kidnappers and saved your son," the administrator continued. "That's completely wrong," Thomas said, his voice rising. "I didn't save Oliver. Caitlin and Rose did, and Frank Jenkins. The real story is how people with almost nothing shared everything they had with my son." Inside the hospital room, Caitlin was showing Oliver how to throw his paper airplane. "You have to hold it like this," she demonstrated. "Then push it. Don't throw it hard." Oliver tried, and his airplane soared across the room. His face lit up with delight. It worked. "Let's make more," Caitlin suggested. "We can have a contest." A nurse entered with breakfast trays. "Here you go. Special breakfast for special patients." She placed a tray with pancakes, eggs, bacon, fruit, and orange juice in front of each child. Oliver immediately began eating, but Caitlin stared at her food. "What's wrong?" the nurse asked. "Is this all for me?" Caitlin asked quietly. The nurse nodded, confused. "Of course, sweetie." After the nurse left, Oliver noticed Caitlin carefully wrapping half her bacon and a pancake in a napkin. "Why are you saving that?" he asked. "For later," Caitlin said, as if it was obvious. "Food like this doesn't come along every day." Oliver stopped eating, suddenly understanding something important about his new friend's life. In another part of the hospital, Detective Martinez met with Thomas and Rose. "We've found extensive evidence in Catherine's apartment. She was planning to flee to Mexico tomorrow. She had fake passports, offshore accounts, everything." "How much did she steal from the company?" Thomas asked. "At least $8 million over 3 years, Martinez replied. "But there's more. She manipulated the pension fund during the West Side Memorial acquisition. Many employees who were laid off didn't receive their full benefits." Rose's face tightened. "I knew something wasn't right with my severance. It was much less than it should have been." Thomas looked stricken. "I didn't know. I trusted Catherine with those details." She specifically targeted departments where people were unlikely to fight back, Martinez explained, like pediatric nursing, where staff were more focused on their patients than paperwork. Thomas turned to Rose. I'm going to make this right. For you and every other employee who was affected. As they talked, Oliver and Caitlin walked down the hospital hallway with a nurse, their paper airplanes in hand. Let's fly them from here, Oliver suggested, pointing down the long corridor. They launched their planes, laughing as they sailed through the air. A woman in an expensive suit walked around the corner and had to dodge one of the planes. She picked it up with a frown. Oliver! There you are, she said. I've been so worried. Oliver stepped back, moving closer to Caitlin. Hello, Mrs. Peters. The woman smiled at him, then looked at Caitlin with confusion. And who is this? This is my friend Caitlin, Oliver said proudly. She saved me. How nice, Mrs. Peters said dismissively. She turned to the nurse. I'm Vanessa Whitman, Oliver's mother. Where is Thomas? Mom, Oliver said, suddenly excited. Caitlin made me paper airplanes. Look how good they fly. Vanessa barely glanced at the paper airplane in her hand. That's wonderful, dear. Why don't we find your father and discuss taking you home? As they walked back toward Oliver's room, Vanessa whispered to the nurse, Who is that little girl really? She's the child who found Oliver in the park, the nurse explained. Her grandmother lives in Pinewood Heights. Vanessa's eyebrows shot up. Pinewood Heights? And Thomas allowed her near Oliver? Inside the room, Thomas was surprised to see his ex-wife. Vanessa, I didn't know you were back from Europe. I came as soon as I heard Oliver was safe, she said, hugging her son. The press is everywhere downstairs. They're calling you a hero. I'm not a hero, Thomas said firmly. Caitlin and her grandmother are the heroes, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows that. Vanessa pulled Thomas aside. Thomas, we need to discuss Oliver's security going forward, and perhaps it's time to reconsider that Swiss boarding school. No, Oliver said loudly, having overheard. I don't want to go to Switzerland. I want to stay here with Dad and visit Caitlin. Oliver, sweetie, you've been through a traumatic experience, Vanessa said gently. These people might have been kind, but they're not like us. Rose, who had been quiet until now, stood up straight. And what exactly does that mean, Mrs. Whitman? Before Vanessa could respond, a hospital administrator rushed in. Mr. Whitman, the press situation is getting out of control. There are over a dozen news crews downstairs. They're interviewing hospital staff. Someone leaked that Oliver and the Johnson family are here. Thomas made a decision. I'll make a statement. One statement. But I'm going to tell the real story. 30 minutes later, Thomas stood before a crowd of reporters outside the hospital entrance. Rose, Caitlin, and Oliver watched on a television in the hospital room. Yesterday, my son Oliver was found safe after being kidnapped by my former executive assistant Catherine Reynolds, Thomas began. But the real story isn't about me or the kidnapping. It's about an extraordinary act of kindness. He continued, explaining how Caitlin had shared her only food with a stranger and how Rose had opened their home to Oliver despite their own struggles. Today, I'm announcing the creation of the Whitman Johnson Foundation, Thomas said, surprising everyone. This foundation will focus on community revitalization, beginning with Pinewood Heights, and Rose Johnson has agreed to help direct our efforts. Rose gasped, turning to Caitlin. Did you know about this? Caitlin shook her head, equally surprised. Furthermore, Thomas continued, I'm committed to reviewing all Whitman Technologies' business practices, particularly the hospital acquisition that left many dedicated healthcare workers without jobs. We will make things right. Back in the hospital room, Vanessa looked stunned. He can't be serious. A foundation named after these people? I think it's wonderful, Oliver said, taking Caitlin's hand. Later that afternoon, as they prepared to leave the hospital, Thomas spoke privately with Rose. I meant what I said about the foundation, he told her, and I'd like to offer Caitlin a scholarship to Oliver's school, Washington Academy. She's a bright girl who deserves every opportunity. Rose considered this. Caitlin is very smart, but Washington Academy is so far from Pinewood Heights." "We can arrange transportation," Thomas assured her, "and maybe once the foundation work begins, you might consider moving to a neighborhood closer to the school." "This is all happening very fast," Rose said. "I know," Thomas admitted, "but when I saw Oliver and Caitlin together, I realized something important. My son has everything money can buy, but he's never had a friend who truly cared about him as a person, not as the son of Thomas Whitman." As they left the hospital through a private exit, reporters shouted questions from behind barriers. One caught Thomas's attention. "Mr. Whitman, is it true Catherine Reynolds is claiming you knew about the pension fund manipulation?" Thomas stopped, but a security officer urged him forward. "Sir, we need to keep moving." "What did that reporter mean?" Rose asked as they got into the waiting car. "Catherine is trying to deflect blame," Thomas explained, but his expression was troubled. "She's claiming I approved all her financial decisions." "Did you?" Rose asked directly. "I signed the papers," Thomas admitted, "but I didn't review them carefully. I was focused on growth, on the next acquisition. I trusted Catherine to handle the details." Oliver and Caitlin, sitting across from them, were oblivious to this conversation. They were busy making plans for Caitlin's visit to Oliver's home the next day. "I have so many toys I want to show you," Oliver was saying excitedly. "And books. Do you like to read?" "I love reading," Caitlin replied, "but our library card expired and Grandma says we can't afford the late fees right now." Oliver looked confused. "You have to pay to borrow books?" "If you return them late," Caitlin explained, "and sometimes I forget to return them on time because I want to keep reading them." Thomas listened to this exchange, noting once again the vast differences between Oliver's world and Caitlin's. As the car pulled away from the hospital, he made a silent promise to himself. Things were going to change, not just for the Johnson family, but for everyone his business decisions had affected. Detective Martinez watched the Whitman car leave from her position near the hospital entrance. Her phone rang. It was her partner. "Martinez." "We found something else in Catherine's records," her partner said. "She kept detailed notes about every questionable decision at Whitman Technologies. And Thomas Whitman's signature is on everything." Martinez frowned. "Keep digging. I want to know how deep this goes." 6 weeks later, Franklin Park looked very different. Construction workers in bright yellow vests moved around the area. New playground equipment gleamed in the morning sun. Fresh benches had replaced the old broken ones, including the bench where Caitlin had first found Oliver. Thomas Whitman stood in the center of the park, surrounded by community members, workers, and reporters. Behind him stood a large sign. "Future home of the Whitman Johnson Community Center." "Today marks an important beginning," Thomas announced to the crowd. "The Whitman Johnson Foundation starts its work right here, where a simple act of kindness changed many lives, including mine." Rose Johnson stood beside him, looking healthier than she had in years. Her blood pressure medication was working, and the dark circles under her eyes had faded. Caitlin and Oliver sat in the front row, both wearing Washington Academy uniforms. "I am honored to introduce our foundation director, Rose Johnson," Thomas continued. "Her knowledge of this community will guide our efforts to create real, lasting change in Pinewood Heights." Rose stepped forward to polite applause. "Thank you, Mr. Whitman. As someone who has lived in Pinewood Heights for many years, I know both its struggles and its strengths. This community has good people who help each other even when they have very little themselves. Now, with proper resources and support, we can build something wonderful together." After the ceremony, construction began immediately on the community center. The Whitman Johnson Foundation had already started renovating the apartment building where Rose and Caitlin lived. Residents had been temporarily moved to nice hotels while their homes were improved. Later that day, Thomas faced a different audience. The Whitman Technologies Board of Directors sat around a large conference table, their expressions serious. "The company stock has dropped 7 points since your announcement," said Harold Wilson, the chief financial officer. Investors are concerned about this sudden shift towards social responsibility. They're worried about profits, Thomas corrected. But I'm more concerned about people. That's admirable, Thomas, said Linda Chen, another board member. But we have shareholders to answer to. This new foundation is costing millions, and your plan to review all past acquisitions could open us to lawsuits. Thomas remained calm. When my son was missing, what was he worth to me? Everything. I would have given every cent I own to get him back safely. But money didn't save him. Kindness did. Kindness from people who had almost nothing. Harold sighed. This is business, not a personal charity. Actually, it's both now, Thomas replied firmly. The foundation stays. The community work continues, and yes, we will review all past acquisitions, starting with Westside Memorial Hospital. If we made mistakes, we'll fix them. Across town at Washington Academy, Caitlin sat in her new classroom. Everything felt different here. The desks were made of smooth wood, the computers were new, and the playground had equipment she'd never seen before. She wore the same uniform as everyone else, but she still felt different. During lunch, she sat alone until Oliver joined her. "Why aren't you sitting with your friends?" Caitlin asked him. Oliver shrugged. "Tyler said mean things about you. He said your grandma only got her job because my dad feels sorry for you." "Is that true?" Caitlin asked quietly. "No," Oliver said firmly. "My dad says your grandma is the smartest person to run the foundation because she actually knows what people in Pinewood Heights need. The other people he interviewed only cared about looking good on TV." A girl approached their table. "Can I sit here?" "The other girls are talking about their ski trip to Aspen, and I've never been skiing." "Sure," Caitlin smiled. "I'm Caitlin. This is Oliver." "I'm Madison," the girl replied. "I'm new too. My mom just got a job at Whitman Technologies. She's a programmer." The three children talked easily, finding common ground despite their different backgrounds. In Pinewood Heights, Frank Jenkins walked slowly around the construction site of the new community center. He carried a notebook and made careful notes about security camera placement. "Mr. Jenkins, good to see you outside," called Rosa, a construction manager. "How are you feeling today?" "Better," he replied. "Made it 4 blocks yesterday without stopping." "That's great progress," she said. "Thomas Whitman was asking about your security recommendations. He takes them very seriously." Frank nodded, pleased that his expertise was valued. Each day, he pushed himself to go a little farther from his apartment. Some days were harder than others, but having a purpose helped push back the fear. At the temporary foundation office nearby, Rose interviewed potential staff members. She insisted on hiring people from the neighborhood when possible. "Tell me why you want this position," Rose asked a young woman named Tasha. "I grew up in Pinewood Heights," Tasha explained. "Left for college on a scholarship, got my social work degree. Always wanted to come back and help, but there were never any jobs here. Now there's a chance to make a real difference." Rose made notes. "And how would you handle families who might be suspicious of the foundation? Many people here don't trust outsiders with money." "I wouldn't blame them," Tasha replied honestly. "People come to neighborhoods like this with big promises all the time, take photos for their annual reports, then disappear. I'd build trust slowly with small, consistent actions before big promises." Rose smiled. "That's exactly the approach we need." Meanwhile, Detective Martinez continued her investigation into Whitman Technologies' business practices. She sat across from Thomas in his office, her expression serious. "Catherine Reynolds is cooperating with prosecutors," Martinez explained. "She's provided documents showing questionable decisions in at least 5 company acquisitions, including Westside Memorial." Thomas nodded. "I expected that. I've instructed our legal team to cooperate fully with your investigation. I want everything out in the open." "Even if it implicates you?" Martinez asked directly. "Yes," Thomas said firmly. "I signed those documents. I was focused on growth and profits, not people. I need to take responsibility for that." Martinez studied him. "That's not how wealthy CEOs usually respond to investigations." I'm not the same person I was 6 weeks ago, Thomas said simply. After Martinez left, Thomas drove to Pinewood Heights to check on the renovation progress. Workers were installing new windows in the apartment building. Inside, the apartments were being completely redone with better heating, new appliances, and improved safety features. Thomas had insisted that the renovations preserve the character of the building while fixing its problems. "Mr. Whitman," called a voice from across the street. Thomas turned to see Mrs. Diaz, one of the building residents, approaching. "My daughter has asthma," Mrs. Diaz said. "The doctor at the free clinic you opened last week found she needed special medicine. They gave it to us without charge. She can breathe properly for the first time in years." Thomas was moved by her words. "I'm very glad to hear that, Mrs. Diaz. Some people say you are only doing this because of what happened with your son," Mrs. Diaz continued. "They say you will lose interest soon." "What do you think?" Thomas asked. "I think people can change," she replied. "But we will see if you stay when the cameras leave." Her honest words stayed with Thomas as he drove to pick up Oliver and Caitlin from school. He found them sitting together on a bench, reading books. "How was school today?" he asked. "Good," Oliver said. "We made a new friend named Madison." "I have homework about planets," Caitlin added, "and I got picked for the math team." "That's wonderful," Thomas smiled. "Caitlin, would you like to come to our house for dinner? Your grandmother is in meetings until 7 o'clock. "Yes, please," Caitlin nodded. "Can we have mac and cheese again?" Thomas laughed. "Again? With all the fancy food our chef can make, you want mac and cheese?" "It's the best," Oliver insisted. "Chef James makes it with 4 kinds of cheese." As they drove to the Whitman penthouse, Thomas received a call from his assistant. "Sir, the board has called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. Mr. Wilson has gathered support from several key shareholders. They're planning to challenge your leadership." Thomas sighed. "Thank you for the warning. Please send me the shareholder reports from the last quarter." "Is something wrong?" Oliver asked, noticing his father's expression. "Just some people at work who don't agree with the changes I'm making," Thomas explained. "You mean the foundation?" Caitlin asked. "Grandma says some rich people don't like spending money on poor neighborhoods." "That's part of it," Thomas admitted, "but I believe what we're doing is right, even if it's difficult." At the Whitman penthouse, the children worked on homework while Thomas reviewed company reports. The past 6 weeks had been challenging but fulfilling. He had connected more with Oliver, learned about the community he had previously ignored, and started making real changes. His phone buzzed with a message from Rose. "Community center plans approved by City Council. Construction can begin next week." Another message appeared, this one from his legal team. "Catherine Reynolds has provided prosecutors with emails suggesting you were aware of pension fund manipulation during Westside Memorial acquisition." Thomas stared at the message. He remembered receiving those emails but hadn't read them carefully. He had trusted Catherine to handle the details. His negligence had hurt people like Rose, and now he might face serious consequences. "Dad?" Oliver called from the kitchen. "Chef James says dinner is ready." Thomas put down his phone. "Coming." At the dinner table, Chef James served the requested mac and cheese, along with roasted vegetables and fresh bread. "This is so good," Caitlin said happily. "At our hotel they have a restaurant too, but it's not as good as this." "Do you like the hotel?" Thomas asked. "It has a swimming pool," Caitlin exclaimed, "and the bed is so soft." "But I miss our neighbors." "You'll see them soon," Thomas promised. "When the renovations are done, everyone will move back to better apartments." As they ate, Thomas watched the children talk about school and friends. Despite the challenges he faced with the board and the investigation, he knew he had made the right choice. 6 weeks ago, he had been a different person, focused only on business success, disconnected from his son, blind to the impact of his decisions on people like Rose and Caitlin. The foundation was more than a charitable project. It was his way of rebuilding not just Pinewood Heights, but his own understanding of what truly mattered. The next morning, Thomas stood in the Whitman Technologies boardroom facing 12 stern faces. The emergency meeting was about to begin, and he could feel the tension in the air. Harold Wilson spoke first. "Thomas, we've called this meeting because many of us are concerned about the direction of the company. The stock has dropped 15% since you announced the foundation. Our shareholders are worried," added Linda Chen. "You've committed over $20 million to Pinewood Heights renovations. That's money that could have gone to dividends or expansion." Thomas remained calm. "The foundation work is necessary and right. It's also good business in the long term. Communities with resources produce skilled workers and new customers." "That's not the only concern," said Robert Jameson, another board member. "The media has started asking questions about our past business practices. The Catherine Reynolds situation has opened a door we may not want opened." A video screen on the wall showed a news report. Former Whitman Technologies executive Catherine Reynolds, currently awaiting trial for kidnapping and embezzlement, has provided prosecutors with information about company practices she calls systematic exploitation of workers and communities. Reynolds claims CEO Thomas Whitman approved all questionable decisions. Harold turned off the screen. "This is exactly what we feared. Reynolds is trying to take you down with her." "She's not entirely wrong," Thomas admitted, shocking everyone in the room. "I did approve those decisions. I didn't review them carefully enough, but I signed the papers. I was focused on growth at any cost." "This is not the time for public confession," Linda warned. "Our legal team advises minimal comment during the investigation." "I disagree," Thomas replied. "Complete transparency is our best path forward. I've already instructed our finance team to review every acquisition from the past 5 years. Where we find problems, we'll fix them." "This could cost hundreds of millions of dollars," Harold protested. "Then that's what it costs," Thomas said firmly. "I can no longer separate my business decisions from their human impact." At Washington Academy, Caitlin sat alone during morning break. She watched as a group of girls from her class huddled together, occasionally looking her way and whispering. Madison, her new friend, appeared and sat beside her. "Why are you sitting by yourself?" Madison asked. "Those girls said their parents told them not to play with me," Caitlin explained. "Amber said her dad called me the charity case that's causing Whitman's stock to fall." Madison frowned. "That's mean. My mom says Mr. Whitman is doing the right thing with the foundation." "Is your mom's job okay?" Caitlin asked. "Oliver's dad said some people at his company are angry about the money he's spending in Pinewood Heights." "Mom says there are rumors about layoffs," Madison admitted. "But she also says good companies care about more than just money." The girls' conversation was interrupted when Oliver ran over, his face worried. "Caitlin, did you see the news?" "What news?" "It's all over the school. Someone's parents showed them." Oliver pulled out his phone and showed her a video clip. On the screen, a reporter stood in front of the new community center construction site in Pinewood Heights. Behind her, a group of people held signs: "Whitman ruined our lives," and "Justice for West Side workers." The reporter spoke into the microphone. "Former employees of West Side Memorial Hospital are protesting the Whitman Johnson Foundation, claiming that Thomas Whitman's new charitable efforts don't erase the damage his company caused when they lost their jobs and pensions 2 years ago." The camera showed a woman speaking angrily. "He laid off hundreds of us, took our pensions, and now wants to act like a hero? Where was this concern when our families were struggling?" Caitlin's face fell. "Those people are mad at your dad. And they're mad at my grandma too for working with him." "Dad is trying to fix things," Oliver insisted. "He's helping people now." "But what about before?" Madison asked. "My mom said big companies sometimes hurt people to make more money." The school principal approached them. "Caitlin, Oliver, please come to my office. Your parents, Mr. Whitman and Mrs. Johnson, have called. You're being picked up early today." At the foundation office, Rose faced her own challenges. A group of former West Side Memorial employees had gathered outside, demanding to speak with her. "Rose, you were one of us," called Maria Gonzalez, who had been a nurse for 15 years. "How can you work with the man who destroyed our careers?" Rose stepped outside to face them. "I understand your anger. I lost my job too, remember? But Thomas Whitman is trying to make amends." "Amends?" Maria scoffed. "A community center doesn't pay my mortgage or replace my pension." "You're right," Rose agreed. "That's why we're reviewing all employee settlements from the West Side acquisition. Many of you didn't receive proper compensation. We're working to fix that." "Why should we believe you?" asked another former employee. "Because I was in your exact position," Rose replied. "I know what it feels like. I'm not asking you to forgive Whitman Technologies. I'm asking you to give us a chance to make things right." Detective Martinez watched from her unmarked car. When the crowd began to disperse, she approached Rose. "You handled that well," Martinez commented. "They have every right to be angry," Rose sighed. "Many of them lost everything." "That's actually why I'm here," Martinez said. "The investigation into Catherine Reynolds has expanded. We've found evidence that pension funds were deliberately mismanaged during several acquisitions. The question is whether Thomas Whitman knew about it." "What do you think?" Rose asked. "I think he was too busy looking at profit margins to notice what Catherine was doing," Martinez replied. "But negligence isn't much better than active participation when you're the CEO." Rose's phone rang. It was Thomas. "Rose, I've pulled the children from school for the day," he said, his voice tense. "There's too much media attention. I'm sending a car for you, too." "I just had protesters outside the office," Rose told him. "I know. It's happening at all our foundation sites," Thomas explained. "Catherine's allegations are creating exactly what she wanted: chaos." Later that afternoon, Thomas, Rose, and the children gathered at the Whitman penthouse. The television showed protests outside Whitman Technologies' headquarters. "Why are so many people mad at you, Dad?" Oliver asked. Thomas turned off the TV. "Because I made mistakes, Oliver. Big mistakes that hurt people." "But you're fixing them now, right?" Oliver asked hopefully. "I'm trying," Thomas said. "But sometimes fixing a problem doesn't erase the pain it caused." Caitlin had been quiet since arriving. Finally, she spoke. "The girls at school said their parents told them not to play with me." Rose put her arm around her granddaughter. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." "Maybe I should go back to my old school," Caitlin suggested. "My friends there still like me." Thomas shook his head. "Running away won't solve this. Washington Academy is giving you opportunities you deserve." "But what if no one wants to be my friend?" Caitlin asked. "I'm your friend," Oliver said firmly. "And Madison too. We don't care what anyone's parents say." Thomas's phone rang again. It was his assistant. "Sir, the board has called for a vote of no confidence. They want to replace you as CEO while you focus on the foundation." After hanging up, Thomas explained the situation to Rose. "What will you do?" she asked. "Fight," Thomas said simply. "But not for my position. For the changes we're making, for the commitments we've made to Pinewood Heights." The doorbell rang. It was Detective Martinez. "I need to speak with you, Mr. Whitman," she said seriously. "The district attorney is considering charges related to the pension fund mismanagement. They believe you may have been complicit in Catherine's actions." Thomas nodded. "I expected this. Please, come in." As Martinez explained the potential charges, Rose watched Thomas carefully. He didn't make excuses or try to shift blame. He listened and accepted responsibility for his role. When Martinez left, Rose stayed behind while the children went to play in Oliver's room. "You could lose everything," Rose said quietly. "The company, your reputation, possibly even your freedom." "I know," Thomas acknowledged. "Yet you're still pushing forward with the foundation work?" Thomas nodded. "The foundation isn't about making me look good. It's about doing what's right. Whether I'm CEO or not, the work needs to continue." Rose studied him for a long moment. 6 weeks ago, I wouldn't have believed you capable of this kind of change." 6 weeks ago I wasn't, Thomas admitted. "It took Caitlin's kindness and your wisdom to show me what really matters." Rose smiled slightly. "So what do we do now?" "We keep our promises," Thomas said firmly. "Tomorrow I'll meet with the protesters. I'll listen to their concerns, acknowledge the harm done, and present our plan to make things right." "And if they don't accept it?" Rose asked. "Then we improve the plan until they do," Thomas replied. "This isn't about quick fixes or good publicity. It's about real change." Rose nodded, a new respect in her eyes. "In that case, I have an idea." "Something Caitlin said gave me inspiration." "What's that?" "You need to talk to the little girl who shared her sandwich," Rose said, "because she might have the perfect solution to bring everyone together." Thomas found Caitlin and Oliver playing a board game in Oliver's room. He sat down on the floor next to them, watching as Caitlin carefully counted spaces on the board. "Caitlin," Thomas said gently, "your grandmother thinks you might have an idea that could help us bring everyone together." Caitlin looked up, surprised. "Me?" "Yes. Sometimes children see solutions that adults miss." Caitlin thought for a moment, her small face serious. "Well, when people at my old school were fighting, our teacher would make us share lunch together. She said it's hard to stay mad at someone when you're sharing food." "Sharing food?" Thomas repeated, thinking about the sandwich Caitlin had shared with Oliver one rainy evening in Franklin Park. "That's it!" Oliver exclaimed. "We could have a big picnic in the park. Everyone could bring sandwiches to share, just like Caitlin did with me." Thomas smiled slowly. "That's a wonderful idea." The next day, Thomas met with the former West Side Memorial employees. Instead of holding the meeting at his office, he went to the community center construction site in Pinewood Heights. "I'm here to listen," he began, standing before the group of angry protesters. "I made serious mistakes that hurt your families. No amount of community work erases that fact." Maria Gonzalez, still skeptical, crossed her arms. "Pretty words don't pay bills, Mr. Whitman." "You're right," Thomas agreed. "That's why I've brought these." He handed out folders to everyone present. "These contain details of the compensation package we're offering to everyone affected by the West Side acquisition. It includes back pay, pension restoration, and healthcare coverage." The group opened the folders, their expressions changing from anger to surprise. "This is more than I was owed," Maria said, looking up in confusion. "It includes interest and an acknowledgement of hardship," Thomas explained. "It's not charity, it's repayment of a debt." "Why should we trust you now?" asked another former employee. "You have every reason not to," Thomas admitted. "That's why all funds will be placed in a trust overseen by an independent board, including 3 representatives you choose from your group." As the meeting continued, Thomas shared the foundation's plans and invited the former employees to participate. By the end, many were cautiously optimistic. "One more thing," Thomas said before they left. "A 7-year-old girl once taught me an important lesson about sharing. I'd like to invite all of you and your families to join us in Franklin Park 1 year from today, the anniversary of when that little girl shared her sandwich with my son." 1 year later, Franklin Park was transformed. New trees lined freshly paved walkways. Children played on colorful playground equipment. A beautiful community center stood where once there had been only neglected space. Tables stretched throughout the park, covered with white cloths and filled with sandwiches of every kind. People from all parts of Seattle mingled together, sharing food and stories. Rose, elegant in a simple blue dress, stood beside Thomas as they cut a ribbon across the entrance of the community center. A large sign above the door read, "Half Sandwich Hall." "I declare the Pinewood Heights Community Center officially open," Thomas announced to cheers from the crowd. Oliver, now 9 years old, stepped forward. He looked more confident than he had a year ago, standing straight with a bright smile. "My name is Oliver Whitman," he began, speaking into a microphone. 1 year ago today, I was lost and scared in this park. A girl I didn't know shared her sandwich with me. It was just a sandwich, but it was everything to me at that moment." The crowd grew quiet, listening intently. "Caitlin Johnson taught me that being a friend means sharing what you have, even when you don't have much. Our friendship changed my life, and my dad's life, and now it's changing our whole community." Caitlin, standing beside her former teacher, Mrs. Robinson, blushed as people turned to look at her. She wore a pretty yellow dress, and her hair was neatly braided with colorful beads. Though still small for her age, she stood taller now, more confident after a year of proper nutrition and healthcare. "The foundation has built this community center, fixed apartments, and created jobs," Oliver continued. "But the most important thing we've built is friendship between people who might never have met otherwise." After the speeches, people filled their plates with sandwiches and sat together at the long tables. Thomas found himself sitting between Rose and Detective Martinez, who was now off duty and enjoying the celebration. "The final sentencing was yesterday," Martinez said, taking a bite of her sandwich. "Catherine Reynolds got 20 years for the kidnapping and another 15 for the financial crimes." "Justice was served," Thomas nodded. "And I've served my community service hours working here in Pinewood Heights." "The district attorney made a good decision accepting your settlement offer instead of pursuing charges," Martinez commented. $30 million for the victim compensation fund plus your public admission of negligence was more than they would have gotten from a trial." Rose smiled. "And the foundation has already done so much good." Across the table, Frank Jenkins was telling a group of children about his time in Vietnam. The former recluse now led security training at the community center 3 days a week. Though he still had occasional panic attacks, he had developed strategies to manage them with help from the mental health services the foundation had established. "Mr. Jenkins is taking me fishing next weekend," Oliver told Caitlin excitedly. "Do you want to come?" "Yes," Caitlin nodded. "Mrs. Madison said I can use my science project about fish for extra credit." Caitlin's academic achievements at Washington Academy had impressed everyone. Though she had struggled at first with the transition, she now excelled in her classes, particularly science and mathematics. A special tutoring program funded by the foundation had helped her catch up quickly. Vanessa Whitman, Oliver's mother, approached their table. She had initially opposed Thomas's new direction, but over the past year she had seen the positive changes in their son. "The center looks wonderful," she said, sitting down beside Thomas. Oliver's speech was impressive. "He wrote it himself," Thomas said proudly. "He's become very interested in public speaking." "I've noticed," Vanessa smiled. "He's different now. Happier, more confident." "He has real friends," Thomas explained. "Not just people who want to be around him because of his last name." At the front of the park, a group was gathering for a special unveiling. Thomas excused himself and went to join them, bringing Rose along. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "today we celebrate not just the completion of the Pinewood Heights revitalization, but the beginning of something new." He pulled a cloth off a small sign that showed a simple logo, a sandwich divided in half. "This is the first of many Caitlin's Corners throughout Seattle. These are places where people can donate food for those in need or take what they need without judgment. The idea is simple. We all have something to share, and we all sometimes need help." Caitlin's eyes widened as she saw her name on the sign. Oliver squeezed her hand in excitement. "Furthermore," Thomas continued, "today I'm announcing a new corporate policy for all Whitman companies. From this day forward, 10% of all profits will be invested directly into the communities where we operate." This announcement caused a stir in the crowd, especially among the business reporters present. "Our shareholders might worry about reduced dividends," Thomas acknowledged, "but over the past year, we've found that investing in communities creates stronger businesses. Our stock has recovered and now stands higher than before, proving that doing good is also good business." After the announcements, Thomas found a moment alone with Caitlin. "What do you think of your corners?" he asked her. "I think it's nice," she said thoughtfully. But it wasn't just me. It was Grandma who taught me to share, and Oliver who became my friend, and you who built everything. Thomas smiled. "That's how good things happen, Caitlin. One person starts, then others join in, but someone has to be brave enough to take that first step." As the afternoon continued, people from different neighborhoods, backgrounds, and income levels sat together sharing sandwiches and stories. Children played together on the new playground equipment. Former protesters chatted with Whitman Technologies executives. Rose found Thomas watching the scene from a quiet corner of the park. "Penny, for your thoughts?" she asked. "I was just thinking about how much has changed in 1 year," Thomas replied. "My company, this neighborhood, my relationship with Oliver, even how I see myself and my purpose. All because of half a sandwich," Rose smiled. "And the brave little girl who offered it," Thomas added. They watched as Caitlin and Oliver ran across the grass, leading a game of tag with children from both Pinewood Heights and Westlake Heights. The invisible boundaries that had once separated their worlds were gone. As the sun began to set, casting a golden light over Franklin Park, Thomas Whitman understood a truth that had eluded him throughout his years of building wealth and power. True richness wasn't measured in dollars or assets, but in connections, in kindness, in the willingness to share what you have, even when what you have is just half a sandwich. The park that had once been the scene of a frightened boy's abandonment was now filled with laughter, conversation, and community. And on the bench where Caitlin had first found Oliver, the two children sat together sharing another sandwich, continuing a friendship that had changed countless lives. "Same bench 1 year later," Oliver observed. "But everything else is different," Caitlin replied, looking around at the transformed park. "Do you ever wish you hadn't shared your sandwich with me?" Oliver asked curiously. Caitlin thought about this for a moment, then shook her head. "No. Grandma always says that food tastes better when you share it anyway." Oliver nodded in agreement, understanding a wisdom that would stay with him for the rest of his life, that the true value of anything we possess is found not in keeping it for ourselves, but in sharing it with others. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.